How did you get into this profession? I mean, how did you know that sports broadcasting was what you wanted to do?
I was very interested in sports, but I was learning very young in my life I wasn't going to be a good athlete. My brother and I played softball and baseball, and we played in the yard every day with the assistance of a German Shepherd. And so we would, whoever was at bat broadcast the game, and at 3 outs you went out in the field and the other guy broadcasted. And I really liked it. So baseball was what I wanted to do until 50 years ago this December when I saw the Comets play the Muskegon Zephyrs, and that changed things.
Yeah, talk about that experience and how that got you into hockey and really got that passion going.
Well, I listened to Bob Chase spinning records in the afternoon on Whoa-Whoa, and then at night he'd talk all afternoon about the Comets, and then at night I would hear him do the third period of the games because the owner of the Comets didn't want the gate affected, see. And that experience, I'd sort of harassed my parents to take my brother and me to see the Comets play. And eventually they relented, and the ice was whiter than white. The Seifert's potato chip Zamboni was one of my favorites. I couldn't understand why it didn't chew up the red line and the blue lines and spit them out into the big pyramid of snow in the bin. But your first experience at that is like incredible. And I became hooked on hockey, and listening to Bob all those years, I decided I want to be like Bob Chase.
What role did Bob Chase play in getting your career going?
Well, I was at Manchester, and it's sort of a con job that you do sometimes as a student. You decide that you're going to do a class project. And your class project is to, in my case, interview sports announcers. And that's your excuse to get in and have some of their time if they're nice enough to give it to you. So in one day I got to see Bob Chase, who was my icon, Hilliard Gates, who for many years ran Channel 33, sorry to mention it on 15, and Len Davis, who was the sports director at WGL. I saw them all in one day, and that just solidified how much I wanted to work at this and try and get better and do the job.
And if there's one guy who helped you get your start, would you say it's Bob Chase?
He's one of them, yeah. You know, along the way, you look back, and if you had a half a minute to think and just name names of people who've helped you along the way, there are a lot of them. But Bob's the one that stands out most in my mind because he is the one consistent link in my hockey career. I grew up listening to him, and I still can listen to him now. Gives us all hope.
Mike, you're the voice of a sport with tons of tradition, and the Stanley Cup obviously is the biggest of all. What's it like to call a Stanley Cup final? I mean, I just get emotional thinking about the Blackhawks winning it. What's it like to be a part of those moments?
Are you married?
Yes.
So you remember your wedding day, right? And all the build up to that, and all of the excitement and all of the fear and everything else built into that. Just multiply it times a best-of-7 series, and then a next round, and a next round, and a next round. It's like the Olympics, too, in that you don't sleep as well during those times, not out of fear necessarily, but just out of excitement and out of feeling how blessed you are to be at this point and when all of these great players are out there and you get to watch them play. It's that kind of anxiousness, I think, that you have, and that kind of excitement.
What's it like when you see a fan base like Chicago this year get to experience the Stanley Cup, and they haven't in so long?
Well, when you can remember, not too far back, you could touch a cannon off and not hurt anybody in any section. It's pretty impressive now what they've been able to build. I hope, despite all their roster losses, they're able to sustain this because it's wonderful for hockey and it's great in Chicago. But we are in a salary cap era. It's a general manager's league now, and if you sign a guy for long term, that means that some of your players are going to go. I think Mike Babcock of Detroit said it best last fall, because they'd been to the final 2 straight years. Now they didn't have Hossa, and the Hoodler had gone over to Russia. And he said, you win, you reward your players. You win again, you reward your players. Pretty soon you can't reward them all, and they leave.
Let's go back to the Olympics. You called the USA-Canada game this year. That was one of the most watched hockey games in U.S. history. What was that experience like? I know that was probably different for you than many other games you've ever called.
Yeah, from a personal standpoint, the thing that impressed me was that NBC brought in Al Michaels to start the show. And he was the one who handed it off to me for the call. That you never forget. Then the game came on. That was from a personal standpoint. This is from a hockey standpoint. As it unfolded, you thought, is this ever going to be great for our sport? And then when Parise tied it, during the intermission before the overtime, I turned to Eddie Olczyk and I said, U.S. is going to win this thing. Wrong. I've done that before. Good thing I didn't say it on the air.
Sidney Crosby got in the way of that.
Yeah, he got in the way of that. And it's not many times that a guy like Ryan Miller can actually become a winner out of